Right, welcome back guys to the last video of this series where we deal with Pro Tools with MIDI. Right, so in this video we're basically then gonna deal with changing MIDI into audio. Right, now there are three ways I'm gonna show you, which is the freeze function, the commit function, and then we're gonna use the other one where you route your MIDI information, right, or your MIDI, or basically let's just say one track, your aux track, to an audio track, right, and record MIDI in that way. So let's start with our freeze option first. With our freeze option, I want you to let's maybe work on the bass here, right? Now freeze basically turns your MIDI into audio through the process of rendering, right? So it's basically taking the MIDI data, right, that basically triggers the audio on the aux track to create an audio file, a rendered audio file, right? So I'll show you an example of one of it, or I'll show you an example of the freeze function, and I want to show you using this particular case. What's important to know about freeze, right, or the freeze function, is that it only works on tracks that emit audio. Now remember what we said, that MIDI tracks do not emit audio. The only thing they do is read MIDI data, right? Aux track, on the other hand, emit audio, right? Now, in this case, we've got these three MIDI files right here, or these three MIDI tracks right here, and they are routed to this aux track here that basically emits the audio that's coming from expand. And this audio expand, the expand audio right here, is triggered by the MIDI data that's within these MIDI tracks, right? So what's important then to understand is that if I come to this track right here, which is a MIDI track, right click on the nameplate, you will see that I will not see any freeze option on it, right? Because it doesn't emit audio. But if I come to this aux track right here and I right click on it, I see the freeze option right here. And that's simply because it emits audio, right? So let's freeze this track and I'll explain what happens when you've frozen this particular track, for example. So I'll freeze this. And there we go. An audio file has been created, as you can see here, just grayed out, but it's there, right? These tracks now have been kind of deactivated simply because this is an audio file now. It's a frozen audio file, right? Or a frozen track in this case. Now, what's important to understand is that when we freeze the audio that's got three different tracks triggering, or three different sounds that are being triggered, in this case actually four, because we had two basses, one lead synth and one pad, they are all now embedded into this audio track. That's the important part to understand, right? That once you freeze the aux track that's got three sounds running through it, or three different sounds, all those three different sounds will be embedded into this audio track. Now, then what Pro Tools does is, and now I'm going to take you to the file structure, right? We're going to go to our desktop or our session. So let's go to desktop, and then we'll go to our session folder right here. I'll double click on that. And this is where, again, from the previous video when we dealt with the file structure of Pro Tools, right? This is where it applies again, that theory where I told you that it's very important that whenever, I'm going to just shift back there, whenever you are moving a Pro Tools session, right, or a Pro Tools project, should I say, you have to move the entire session folder and not the files within it. I really am trying to emphasize this so that it sticks with you, right? You must not forget how important it is to move the session folder. Otherwise, you will lose every information that is associated with your session, which is this session back here, right? So you want to make sure that whenever you're moving your Pro Tools project, you move the session folder as a whole. Right, so what Pro Tools does after you've frozen is that it creates a rendered file, right? That rendered file is located under rendered files folder within your session folder. And after it's created the rendered file, you will see here that it's got bass and lead synth pad aux, right? Which was the name of the track that we had created. If I just shift that, name of the track that we had created right here, right? Now that we've frozen it, it's created a rendered file, rendered audio file. And how you identify that it's created from the freeze function is by this FZ right here, right? As you can see there, it's FZ. So basically what has happened now is that, I'll minimize that, is that the bass, the lead synth, and pads have been combined together to create one audio track, and that audio track is now saved right here within my file structure, within my session folder under rendered files, right? You can then unfreeze it if you want to by going to the same track that you've frozen, right click, and then click on unfreeze, and that will keep, then that will remove the audio and then bring it back to MIDI at its original state as you had it before you froze it, right? And you will see, if I go back, that that file still exists. Rendered files are still existing right there because it was rendered, right? Cool. So that's one way of turning audio, MIDI into audio. Another way of turning MIDI into audio is using the commit function, right? Now the commit function is not as tricky, but it does have underlying information that I'm going to share with you right now. So the commit function, same as freeze. Now, different though between freeze and commit. There is a difference. Freeze, while freeze acts on tracks that emit audio, commit, on the other hand, can work on tracks that just deal with data and embed the audio information into the audio, basically, or the signal, let's put it that way. That means the sound into the audio. But in this case, I am not limited to tracks that emit audio like I would be if I was using freeze. In this case, I can use MIDI tracks. So I can right click on my bass sound, right, and then choose on commit. Now, when that happens, you have now what we call the commit tracks dialog box, right? And then the commit track dialog box has got a couple of options in it, right? So you've got selected tracks. That means any track that you've selected will be committed into one track. So if I want to do the same thing that happened for my freeze track, where I had my bass, my lead, and pads committed into one audio file, I'd have to select 1, 2, 3, select them all, and then commit. Then it will commit them into one audio file. But if I want to now commit them as separate files, right, I can select, click on OK, it will commit that one, and then select this one, click on OK, and then it will commit that one. But there is another option when you click here, and that is the edit selection. Now, in that case, if you had created an edit selection, for example, I'm going to cancel that and just clicked on, maybe let's do the bass. Let's do the bass first and commit that so you can see how that works. Let's go here, click on commit. Then I'm going to say selected tracks, and I'm going to click OK. And that's created that bass track right there, right? Cool. Now, let's say I want to commit a selection, an edit selection, just this part right here. So this is my edit selection. I created an edit selection by clicking on this clip right here, and that created an edit selection from here, from the start of the clip to the end of the clip. Now I just only want this audio right here committed. So now I can right click, right, and then I can go commit. Then I can say edit selection. Then I can click on OK. And it's only committed this track right here, right? Or this session right here, or this clip right here. Same can be done with my pad. But now let's say I want to do the entire track again. So I can select the entire track and not create an edit selection. I'm going to right click, commit, choose selected tracks, click on OK, and it will commit throughout the entire session, right? And when I mean by entire session, that means from the beginning of the first note to the end of the last note or clip. You get what I'm saying? And if I wanted to do a selection, then I'd commit this one here. Now, this selection here, like I did previously on my lead synth. right? Cool. Now, what happens when you do commit, right? So Pro Tools then creates an audio file and saves it in your session folder under audio files. So let's navigate to our session folder. So I'll go to my session folder again. I'm going to start from desktop so that you can understand. And again, I keep on emphasizing this so that we do not get it mistaken. So I've gone to my desktop and I'm clicking on it now, right? And as I double click, I can access my audio files. My audio files are contained under my session folder, and this is the reason why you want to move your session folder and not aspects of your session folder, right? And I'm going to double click on my audio files, and right here you start seeing CM, right? CM1, CM2, right? And the reason why it labels it as CM is because, the reason why it labels it the same as, so it didn't do, for example, it didn't label it as pads, for example, or it didn't label it as bass, like we have these different tracks here. So we've got bass, we've got pad, but rather it labeled it as bass and lead synth. It's because it grabs the audio from this track right here, right? So CM in this case stands for commit, right? And that's very important to remember, that CM stands for commit. So you'll know that this audio has been created from the commit function. And if I go back and I go to rendered files, this audio has been created from the freeze function. Good. Now that is the important part of freezing. Cool. Now that I've shown you the commit option, right? You've seen the freeze and you've seen the commit option. Now I'm going to show you the last way of changing audio into files. This one is a bit much more tricky, but it is a very nice way to kind of change all your, let's say, all your MIDI into audio all at once, right? But it's a long process. So for this example, I am going to use my instrument track, and I'm going to use my strings. So I'm only going to use these tracks right here, and I'm going to just click here and transfer some MIDI there, and I'm going to actually just even go a step further, and I'm going to start it from the beginning so that we don't have to wait for so long to get some audio recording. So let's just zoom in, and I'm going to grab a clip, and I'm going to shift it to the beginning of the session, right? I'm going to trim it with my trim tool. This at least allows me to reiterate what we've learned before. I'm going to go to my grabber tool again, alt click and copy those into my instrument tracks. Then again, I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to undo that. That's Command Z or Control Z on Windows. And I'm going to alt click and drag again just to copy that. Or I could do Command D to duplicate. As you can see, I've duplicated, and now I'm happy with my session. I'm going to hide these other tracks right here so that we don't get confused, because I only want to work with this last 4 tracks right now. So that I don't confuse you much, because this is kind of a long step. I'm going to hide this. I'm going to select, shift, click to the first one that I want to hide. I'm going to then right click, then I'm going to hide and make inactive. Hide and make inactive as an option. And now you can see those tracks have been hidden and have been made inactive. So the only thing I'll be hearing and seeing in my session are the tracks that are not hidden and are active, right? Cool. So let's go now and let me show you on how to then turn MIDI into audio by recording MIDI, or by recording the signal into an audio track. It's a long process, but I'm gonna show you now. So cool. So this is what basically takes place. When you are using audio tracks to basically change MIDI into audio, that means then you need to route the outputs of this, as I've shown you guys about routing on Pro Tools, into the different audio tracks, right? So I'm going to create 3 audio tracks, because I want to create an audio track for this one, and this one, the drum kit, perk, and my strings, right? Backslash. But anyway, yeah. So I'm going to go and create 3 audio tracks, and I'm going to make them stereo. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to create 3 different ones. So for that, I'm going to press plus here. I'm going to make all of these stereo. They're going to be audio tracks, and then I'm going to change the names here. I'm going to call this one string audio. I'm going to call this one, what is it? Drum kit audio. And I'm going to name this one perk audio, right? And then I'm going to click on create. Right now, I like making some of the stuff very easy for me to identify, so I always just change the color of these. If I want to, I'll make that red, and then I know that my audio tracks are red. And then I'm going to take my string and basically place it next to my string track, my drum kit, place it next to my drum kit track, and then my perk, place it next to my perk track. Simply because I'm doing that, simply because I'm going to be recording the sound that comes out of here into here, the sound that comes out of here into here, the sound that comes out of here into here. But I want you to notice something, that when it comes to any track that has got the MIDI track, that means then I've got MIDI data allocated to this track. This MIDI data triggers the plugin that is on this audio track that creates signal or sound that comes out of this track, right? So I'm not going to be routing this track into my audio track. Rather, I'll be routing this aux track, you understand that, into my audio track. Simply because, and I'll explain this in detail, simply because this only holds MIDI data, meaning that it only handles MIDI data, does not emit audio. So this triggers the audio that is here in this plugin right here. So that audio now is going to be triggered by this MIDI track. So this triggers this, and this then creates the sound. That sound is what I want to record into this audio track. So if I want to record the sound that is triggered by this, I don't record from here, but I record from here, meaning that I have to route this track into this track. You understand that? Okay, cool. So in order for me to do that, in routing again, is I'm going to take this and I'm going to route it into my audio track. So I'm going to take output, right? And I'm going to go to track and I'm going to look for string audio. Bam. That creates a bus. Now remember, we've learned about I/O, right? Called string audio. That bus is the common place where these tracks meet, should I say, right? So that bus is the common track where these tracks meet. So track audio is now a new bus that was created by Pro Tools, and that connects the output of this track into the input of this track. That's how I've plugged them together, right? So now if I play strings on their own, I'm just going to mute this. You're not going to see any signal passing through here, and there will be a reason why, but I'll show you why. So I'm playing it. You can see the string signal coming through here, right? That is being triggered by this audio sound right here, right? Let's start from scratch. There you go. As it's playing, this is triggering this, and this is playing through now. This track is playing the audio that's coming from the expand plugin right here, right? The only problem is that I've routed this into this audio track, but it's not coming out of here. And the problem is because I have not activated what we call track input monitoring. This one right here. Bam. As soon as I activate track input monitoring, that means now it will monitor whatever input comes into this track. So if I go from the beginning again and I start playing my MIDI, as you can see now, it's playing through this audio track. And that means then as soon as I start recording it, right, it will record into this audio track, simply because now there is an input coming into this audio track. I activated track input monitoring so that I can be able to monitor and make sure that there is audio coming in. So now I can record on my audio track because I'm going to be recording the audio that's coming from here into here. Now, when it comes to instrument tracks, on the other hand, we work a bit differently, right? Because instrument track can handle both MIDI data and audio, I do not need to link from one track to the next in terms of what I did for MIDI here. But I can take this instrument track right here and link it directly to this track right here, which is my audio track. And for that, I'll do the same thing. I'll go to the output, go to track, and look for drum kit audio. The importance again of naming your tracks. Again, it's created a bus, right? If I go to my I/O section, let's go to setup, I/O, we should find drum kit audio and string audio under my buses. And here is string audio and here's drum kit audio, right? And those are buses. And remember, buses link tracks together from one another internally within Pro Tools, right? So now I am sure that my output for this one, right, is coming into my input for this one. And how I can test that out, if I don't have my input monitoring on, I'll unmute that, I'll play it, no meter will show up here. There will be no signal that will be showing up on this meter. So let's go from the beginning. You see that? But as soon as I have input monitoring on, now it plays through the audio track, right? Cool. So now I know that the signal coming through this audio track, so I can record that one also. So same setup again with my perk. Now we're gonna go to output again, we're gonna go track, and then we're gonna choose track audio, right? And that will route this track to this one. I'm gonna unmute. I don't need to input monitor because it's the same step that we are repeating. I'm sure that there's audio coming into here, so I'm gonna record this track also, right? Now with these three tracks record armed, that's one audio track, the string audio, drum kit audio, and perk audio. They are all three of them are record armed, right? That means then I'm telling Pro Tools that as soon as I record within my session, I want you to record on all three of these tracks. But what are you recording? This one, string audio, is recording what is routed to it, which is the MIDI here, but this MIDI is routed into this aux track here. So essentially it's recording the MIDI, the audio information that's coming from this string track right here. This one is recording information that's coming from here because it's routed into its input. So the output of the signal, which is drum kit audio, goes through this bus into this track using the same bus and comes out of this audio here. So it's going to be recording the audio that's coming from the drum kit, right? And this perk audio track right here is recording information coming from this track right here, our perk track, because this perk track is routed into the input of the output of the perk track, like you can see here, is routed to the input of the perk track, of the perk audio track using a bus, right? So if I command or controls equal on my Windows, controls equal, and then command equals on your Mac, now I'm in my edit window, right? And I'm going to record my audio or record my MIDI into audio. That's essentially turning my MIDI into audio. But in order for me to be able to do that, I have to record on my session. So I'm going to record on my session, bam, right? And then I'm going to click on spacebar so that it starts recording. And you'll see that Pro Tools will start recording on all three tracks simultaneously, but recording the three different sounds that are routed to the individual tracks, like I explained a bit earlier on. So let's begin. So now I can stop it by pressing spacebar, and because I have stopped it and pressed spacebar, it's recorded the audio. There we go, stopped recording, and now I've got audio for this track, I've got audio for this track, and I've got audio for this track, and these two tracks right here coming out of here, right? Now, what has Pro Tools done? Basically, now that I've recorded audio, these files have to be saved somewhere so that Pro Tools can reference them. Can you guess where it saved them? You've guessed right. If you guessed audio files under my session folder. So if I go to my session folder, we'll go to desktop, then we'll go to MIDI, and then we're gonna look for this name right here. It should be string audio, what's the other one? Drum kit audio and perk audio, right? So let's go to our audio track, audio files, and there we have string audio, drum kit audio, and perk audio, right? Recorded within my session and saved and referenced from my session folder, right? Again, we repeat, your session folder is very important because it holds all the information that speaks to your audio or that speaks to your session. You understand? So I've shown you on more than one multiple occasion how it's why it's very important that when you move your session or your project, you have to move the entire session folder. Basically, guys, that concludes us turning MIDI into audio. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. I know it's a very long video, but the purposes of this is to ensure that there is clear understanding when it comes to the different aspects of Pro Tools that I'm explaining. And I hope you've grasped it. You are more than welcome to watch this video again and literally just pick through it and learn Pro Tools. But I would always advise that whenever you're done learning something about Pro Tools, like you've done watching this video, go put it into practice so that you kind of instill or embed this information within yourself, you know. All right, guys, I want to say goodbye, but I won't say goodbye. I'll say cheers. Shout outs.